I think we always distinguish. One question is whether a token could qualify as security under Swiss law, under US law, and this, particularly with regard to US law. The second question is, well, if it would qualify as security, would US law be applicable in the first place? And I think it would be fair to say that the US has somewhat a broader understanding of the principle of territoriality that a lot of other jurisdictions have, despite the EU data protection regulation, which we're going to get to a bit later on tonight. But I think here it would be interesting to hear more from you, Lee, in which ways this territorial principle, this extraterritorial effect actually comes into play, and how much connects you need to the US to fall or to be subject to US laws.
So again, the most important first question to ask is whether or not the token is a security. If the token is not a security, then you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the SEC, even if you sell SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, our securities regulator. You're not subject to their jurisdiction, even if you sell it into the United States. They are just responsible for regulating securities. But if you do have a security, then you do worry about the SEC's jurisdiction. And in both cases, to the extent you are selling to US persons, whether you're selling to them from Switzerland or from Gibraltar or from Jupiter, you have to worry about US jurisdiction. And so if it's a security, you have to worry about securities fraud. You don't want to commit securities fraud. If it's not a security, you still have to worry about fraud. We have what we call common law fraud statutes in most states, and some at the federal level that might be implicated. So you have fraud, you're worried about fraud no matter what. And you're worried about fraud no matter where you're selling.
Okay, thank you. And Luca just mentioned before the distribution, the secondary market as well. So also on the secondary market level, US regulations may come into play, if I understand correctly, depending on how you structure this.
Yeah, that's right. So again, if it's a security and there's secondary market trading in the US, you may need to have a broker-dealer as an intermediary. All of the US-based cryptocurrency exchanges right now are not able to handle a security-based token because they're not a registered broker-dealer. My guess is that a year from now, when we come back here, and hopefully it's not quite this hot, we will have a US exchange that is registered and will trade security-based tokens. But if you're outside the US and the exchange is located outside the US, even if it's taken the token and is trading the token, the obligation will fall to the exchange to make sure that it's selling appropriately to US persons. The area where we worry a little bit for projects is if the project has contracted directly with the exchange for the purpose of having the exchange engage in the secondary market trading and target US persons. So maybe your token launch, your TGE, you did not sell to US persons. But if you then have the exchange specifically targeting US persons, you may have an issue at that point.